off. So I just want to check. Can Roxana, I know you're on. If somebody could write down that you can hear me, because that would be really not good if I do a whole episode that you can't hear. So if you can tell me. And as you do that, somebody can, Roxana, can you hear? No, I'm thinking you can't hear. Okay, I'm gonna, okay, you can hear now. Okay, great. Awesome. So, as far as I know, you can hear. Is this correct? Okay, thank you, Roxana and Katie. Yes, can. Okay, perfect. All right. So, what we're going to talk about today is those daily rituals that you can take to stay in connection with your soul. I wrote about this in my newsletter. I also posted on Instagram about it. And today, as I was planning this, I was like, you know what? This would be really useful to have a live of this so that I can show you, so that we can practice this together. And that way, at any time, if you feel you forget how to do it, or you're confused about how to do it, or you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do it by myself, you can come back to this episode and reconnect and remember. Okay, so to review, what are the 3 steps when we're talking about connecting with your soul every day, all the time? It is first pause. Okay, that's the first step, pause. And these are so simple that it's really easy for our intellect to be like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is so simple. I already know this. But simple doesn't necessarily mean easy, because remember, we have an ego structure, that we have a logical mind that tells us, oh, this is too simple. It thinks it needs to be complicated, right? Or it's so programmed, right? We are so programmed by our ego structure to look outside of ourselves, to always be doing, to always be rushing, to always be busy, to always, okay, thank you, Jill. Thanks, everyone. To always be figuring things out with our logical mind, that pausing can seem like the most unnecessary thing, or the most naive thing, or the most like, there's no way that can make a difference. Or if you're far enough in a spiritual journey, pausing can feel like the most radical thing, the most revolutionary thing, the most courageous thing. So wherever you are, and I know that can depend on our days, I'm repeating again, first step is we pause and really understand the importance of the pause, right? I shared in my blog how when I first had the thought of like, I want to meditate, I want to have a meditation practice. For me, it was always because I wanted to connect with my soul. I knew, I had a feeling, I always had since I was a little girl, this knowing that there was a divine part of me guiding me. Now, I might have not said it in those words. I might have not said my soul, but I knew, I was like, there's some wise part of me that's guiding me. And then through my life, through my challenges, my traumas, all the things that we go through on this human life, I, at some point, learned about meditation and thought, I want to do that. I want to be able to meditate. But my understanding back then of what meditation was very limited. I didn't have anyone in my life that I knew of that meditated. I didn't have anyone in my life that I knew of that did yoga. There was nothing like that around me. You know, I was born in the beautiful city of Chicago, was raised there, very working class neighborhood, and there wasn't those things. There wasn't yoga studios back then, or meditation centers, or anything like that. So all I knew was what I saw in the media, which seemed that it was somebody sitting really still with their hands like this, and their mind was completely blank, and then they had some sort of divine experience. That's what I knew. It's so interesting because then a few years ago, when I went to my husband's, he was a teacher as well, a middle school teacher, and I would go to talk about students about meditation and yoga. And this was, of course, many years after I was a young kid or a teenager or a young adult. And I asked them about it, and they still had very similar understanding. It's like, oh, you sit like this, and you close your eyes and then you don't think about anything. Which then, of course, for me and for these children, that felt impossible because when I would close my eyes and do that, all I would feel was worry and my thoughts would race. And I would just think about, let me back up a little bit. When I seriously started thinking, okay, I want to meditate, I was in my mid 20s. I was going through a really intense divorce. I had 5 children. I was a middle school teacher. I had a lot going on. And so when I would, and yet I understood I need my soul now more than ever, right? This, my soul, I know my soul is guiding me. I want to have more connection with my soul, more communication with my soul. So let me meditate. But I would sit and I would close my eyes and I would do that. And all that would flood my brain was worry. What's going to happen with my divorce? How am I going to get everything done? I don't have time to do everything. Oh my God. Just like thought. And it would feel overwhelming and I would feel so worried. And then I would just feel like I clearly cannot meditate. Obviously, something is wrong with me. I'm broken. I can't figure this out. So back then, what I would do is just pray. It would be like, help me. The most, kind of genuine prayer that sometimes comes out of our mouth is just, please, please help me. And so throughout that journey, throughout then starting my first relationship with a coach and starting to do emotional healing, all of this eventually led, and me literally begging the divine, God being like, please teach me how to meditate, teach me how to talk to my soul. That's when what I discovered was that when I would kind of be able to hear guidance, it was often not when I was meditating. It was when maybe I was washing dishes or I would be doing the most mundane task, actually not thinking I need to meditate and make my brain blank, that I would get like a little bit of guidance would come through. And what I kept hearing throughout was like, just pause, just like take a moment. You don't have to meditate for 30 minutes. Just like pause. And then when I was like, well, what am I going to do in the pause? I was still so attached to or that I had to be doing something really important during that time, or I had to be hearing my soul say all these things to me. But then as I would do that, it was like, oh, I just need to receive from my soul. And that was such a revolutionary thought of like, oh, it's not, even though I thought I wanted this whole big conversation where my soul would tell me, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do that, and then you're going to do that, and you're totally doing everything right, and you're going to be okay. Like that would come at some point. But at first, it was like what I would grasp was like, oh, I just need to pause, and then I need to receive, which was so like, oh, I can receive from my soul. Like that felt like, what am I receiving from my soul? And when I would again kind of the guidance would seep through when I wasn't trying so hard, it was like, just receive my love. And it was like, oh. And I remember in those beginning times, and we're talking 20 years ago, I think I probably dismissed love at that point as like, well, no, I need guidance, right? Because my life was kind of in crisis in a lot of ways. But my soul kept coming back to like love, right? And so it was like, okay, I will take that. And then starting to understand, oh, that was like everything, right? To receive my soul's love was like, oh, my soul's love contains everything in it, contains my soul's wisdom, my soul's vitality, my soul's compassion, my soul's trust, my soul's abundance. All of it was wrapped up in that love. And so that's how that began. And it was like, okay, I can't meditate for 30 minutes right now, or even 10 minutes, and my brain gets filled up with stuff, but I can receive. And the most natural thing for me at that point, the most natural way to receive, because even the little pause, because remember, again, I was in a real crisis mode at that time, right? I'm like 25. There's all these things happening in my life. My life is literally being turned upside down. So even pausing for a little bit was like, could feel scary, unsafe inside of me because what would happen when I would pause, I would feel everything. And so much of that time in my life was just surviving. And I'm not suggesting you're in that place, but I just want to really break it down to you because we're often in a version of that phase, right? And so when I would pause, my mind would still race. And I just very naturally started bringing my hands to my heart center, right here at the center of my chest. Because when I did, it was almost like I just intuitively did that without knowing why or without logical understanding of it, except that I knew when I brought my hands here, it would almost like help my mind to relax, just that physical sensation. And as I did that and just had the intention of like, okay, I'm going to receive, and just setting the intention like, beautiful soul, I'm willing to receive from you. I'm here to receive, right? And that was really big. And what was really then for me so important was to notice that when I would do that, there were parts of me that would come up and be like, okay, I'm receiving, I'm not feeling anything. Wait, what's my soul saying? I'm doing this wrong. It's not working. Nothing's changing. All of that would happen. And again, it was being able to understand. It was more in the in between times where I would hear my soul say, like, just release any pressure that when you do that, you have to hear an answer, you have to feel better, you have to get a vision, you have to be feeling like, oh, I'm flooded with love and now everything makes sense. It was just like my soul was saying, just let all of that go. Just show up and do that, even if it's like 10 seconds, and then just go on with your day. And so I was like, I could do that. And that's how this started. It was like I wasn't thinking, what's the process of following my soul's guidance? I'm going to teach this to people. It was no, it was born out of my own desperate need and longing to learn because despite all how unsuccessful I felt at meditation, I very deeply understood that my soul must want to talk to me. Because I was like, why would my soul not want to talk to me? Why would my soul want to make this so difficult? If I believe that my soul is making this difficult or tricky or wants me to be worthy of it or doesn't think I'm pure enough or all of that, that's that all means that God is a vengeful God and God is judging me and all of those things. And although I had religious programming and I had parts that were traumatized in that way, the true part of me was like, no, I don't believe that about my soul. I really do believe that my soul wants to talk to me and that somehow this must be the most natural, simple thing, that somehow all humans must have this capacity. For some reason, I can't seem to hear my soul, but it must not have to do because my soul doesn't want to talk to me. So I had that. And I just held on to that knowing, like a lifeline, and kept showing up doing this, right? Throughout the day, every day. And little by little, I started to notice like, oh, this is feeling better. And maybe it didn't feel better right in that moment. Maybe it felt better 10 minutes later or an hour later or a day later. Right. And then I started to notice that I was receiving guidance. And at first I wasn't receiving it right then. It was like, oh, later I would get this flash of like, oh, take this step or do this. And I started to connect the dots like, oh, my soul is talking to me. And I started to realize that what was in the way was my trauma, my wounds. And I didn't have to judge myself for it. It's just to know like, oh. And so later, when I became a coach and I wrote my first book, it started to become a more systemized thing, right? It started to become more something I taught clients and students. But this was the origins of it. And so I'm sharing it with you to really demystify it, which is such an interesting way to say it because I do think it's such an actually mystical process. But sometimes we've been taught that mystical means complicated and advanced and like only certain people can do it. But no, we're all mystics. And so I want to share this foundation so you understand like, oh, this is how this came about. And you don't have to put your hands over your heart if that doesn't work for you, your heart center. That just always works for me. It's just a way, but it doesn't have to be that way for you. So as we go through these steps, so to review, what was it? Pause. And when I say pause, I mean throughout the day. Later, in that chapter in my book, Answering Your Inner Calling, I ended up calling them interrupter rituals based on this documentary that I was so inspired by called The Interrupters. And in that documentary, I know some of you have heard me say this story before. It was that documentary was filmed in Chicago, in areas of Chicago where there was a lot of violence. And these really courageous, loving people, what they would do is they literally would, when there was some sort of violence escalating on the streets, they would go and interrupt that violence, but not through more violence, through really witnessing people and listening to them. And of course, they had credibility because they were from those neighborhoods. And so I really, when I watched that, I really felt like that's what our soul does if we allow our soul to do that. To me, we're internally violent to ourselves when we talk to ourselves harshly. Now, I know this can become extreme. People can literally harm themselves to death, literally. But I think for most of us at this point, if you're watching this, even if we did that at some point, we're beyond that. But think about all the violent ways we talk to ourselves, right? That even if it's more subtle, any of that, like, oh, you should be here. You should have done this already. You should figure it out. What's wrong with you? Why are you still feeling bad? Get over it. It's like, even if it's subtle, that is a form of violence against us. Imagine if you had a coach and she lived in your house and all day long, that's all she did. She followed you around saying, like, you could have done that better. Uh, really? You're still doing that? Like, imagine if that, it would feel horrible. And that's what we're doing in our head all the time, really. And so for me, it felt like, oh my gosh, our soul comes in during those times and interrupts that if we allow it and says, hey, I love you. I love you right now. I love you tomorrow. I love you when you're struggling. I love you when you feel successful. I love you all the time. And so that's why I call them interrupter rituals. And then I recognized that, oh, it's not just one pause a day. We're meant to do this throughout the day. And if this is only like 20 seconds, or even if it's a minute, even I, being a seventh grade teacher at that time, going through a very intense divorce, having 5 children, who at that time, let's see, 25, my oldest would have been 9 years old. So imagine that 9, 8, close to 7, 5, 4, whatever, all those ages. Right? So I circumstantially, factually didn't have a lot of time, but even I was like, I have 3 minutes. I have 3 minutes. I can do that. If I split it in the day, do 1 minute every few hours. And so that's how it came about, right? It's like, oh, interrupter rituals. Pause throughout the day. All I have to do is receive from my soul. I'm letting go of any pressure of anything else. And I'm going to trust that as I do that, the next step, which is take action, is going to come at the right time in the right way. So pause, receive, take action. Pause, receive, take action. And I, again, take action. Don't let that, like, your intellect's going to want to complicate that step. Ooh, take action. Wait, what is it? It's going to come naturally. Then the more practice you have, the more experience you have, then yes, you're able to have longer conversations with your soul, and your intuition opens up. There's so many things, right? It's a very different experience for me now than it was then, but not always. I've recently have been going through some really challenging things, and I've been amazed when my body is so flooded with anxiety that I literally am back in that phase 1. Pause, receive from my soul. Don't even worry about taking action right now. Just pause and receive from my soul. I know the action step will come later. So this is something we just keep cycling through. And so, as I was sharing in this blog post and the Instagram post, or when I sent in my newsletter, these rituals are meant to be simple and some that you can do throughout the day. And If you're listening to this and you're like, I really want to get good at this, I really want to master this. And I know some of you have been hearing me talk about this like for years and years and years. And it's so interesting. Like for you, you might be like, oh my gosh, I totally got this. I've been doing this. But always asking the question, well, what is that practice meant to look like for you now? Like I have clients that I've been working with for years. They're like masters at interrupter rituals. And I was literally having a conversation this week with one of them. And she was like, you know what? I realized that last month I like literally did none of these. You know, and this client is so advanced and she does so much. And yet, when I was leading her through a little meditation during our coaching session, that was the guidance her soul was giving her was like, go back to the interrupter rituals. And I was like, oh yeah. And I heard that for myself. That's why I actually wrote that newsletter, was because I was having a lot of anxiety for these circumstances. And it was like, oh, and I was really thinking, like, have I been doing my interrupter ritual? So much of it has become part of my day that it kind of feels like it happens automatically. But in that moment, my soul was saying, like, no, you need to come back to very consciously doing these. And I was really, as I did that, I was becoming clear that, oh, I'm healing some other layers of trauma. And these events are happening in my life that are triggering that trauma. And the trauma doesn't, my feeling in my body doesn't really match the circumstance. But it's like, I need to do these daily pauses to let those emotions just kind of flow through me, not resist them, not drown in them, but let them move through my body and out. And so this is always, whether you're a new person to this or you're someone who's heard me talk about this for years, and maybe you even teach your clients some version of this, it's still relevant, right? Still, we are in that beginner's mind. Like, what are my interrupter rituals meant to be? And so we're going to do one together, just the classic, I want to call it, which is just what I shared before. And there's something really powerful that happens when we do it together, right? Because as beautiful Ascended Master Jesus said, and so many other spiritual teachers have said, where two or more are gathered, there I am. And it doesn't mean there is Jesus. I mean, totally. If Ascended Master Jesus was one of your guides, awesome. But that's not what he was saying. It's like, there I am, that I am presence, that divine self. And so here, as we're gathered, hey, Lorenza, so good to see you. Here, as we're gathered together, is like we amplify the microphone, right? It's like, ooh, now there's all these channels gathered together, whether you're here live or you're watching the replay, then we can hear, we can receive more from our soul in this way. But even as I say that, I really invite you to release any pressure that, oh gosh, I should feel something when we do this. I should get some really deep, profound message right now. Let all of that go. You will become aware of whatever gift your soul has for you today at the right time. It might be later when you're showering, when you're sweeping, when you're walking around, or maybe now, maybe it will be in this moment, and that's great as well. Remember, this is recorded, so you could always come back to this. And when I say come back to this, I'm not suggesting that you have to hear me guide you through it. Ultimately, all of these teachings are for you to become a master yourself at this. So when I coach my clients, it's not for them to depend on me. I'm coaching them over and over and over and over and over to rely on their own soul, on their own higher self. Right? That's what this is about. Okay. I do want to share, I pulled a unicorn card before we began. Look at this beautiful card. And I really feel like, in this sense, the unicorn represents us, right? Unicorns are so divine, right? They're like, I feel like they represent the full expression of our divinity. But look at this. This unicorn has his crown and causal chakra really open. And it's okay if you don't know what chakra is, your energy centers, but look at this light coming down, going to this unicorn's heart. And then there's a rainbow at its feet. And so if you think of yourself, if you replace this unicorn with your picture, and you think of this light that's coming down as your soul's light or your higher self's light, whichever resonates, and it goes down into your heart. And then when it goes down into your heart, like, look at how it radiates out. And to me, then this rainbow is the rainbow path that appears, right? The action steps. But we don't need to feel pressure to receive it all now. You'll receive the next right step, whether you hear it now or later. So I thought this was so perfect. This is from Diana Cooper's Unicorn deck, by the way. All right. So, and we're going to get started and I'll pull some cards. I also want to remind you, I forgot, next week, we're really at the beginning, this entering of the Lion's Gate. And if you're like, what's Lion's Gate? I'm not going to go totally into it, but it's this beautiful portal, right? It's that was celebrated in the ancient Egyptian cosmology. But I also feel it was celebrated in a lot of different places. And I'm really discovering that it was really also celebrated by the Mayans here in Mexico and around this area. And this was a time of great, like when we talk about the Lion's Gate opening, is like this portal of abundance flowing. Right? This portal of abundance, but when this portal of abundance opens, what does it require? It requires us to open to the abundance. And that might sound lovely. And let me back up. Abundance can be financial, it can be health, it could be creative ideas, it could be relationships, it could be vitality, it could be emotional healing, whatever it is that where you feel lack and you're like, I want abundance in this. And it might feel like, well, of course I want abundance in this. Bring it on. But the truth is that we have a lot of programming, wounds, fears, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. That's part of being human, that get in the way of us receiving that abundance. So when the Lionsgate portal opens, it's an opportunity, right? It's when the Nile would flood, the river Nile would flood through Egypt. Think about this rushing of abundance, but it's an opportunity to really clear up what you've been working on already. So if you've been having challenging last few weeks, last few months, 2024 and so on, it's because that stuff has been coming up to be cleared. And here we have this beautiful portal, and then it's lions, right? So it brings in the medicine of the lion, the lioness, right? That energy of courage, that energy of sisterhood, right? And soul sisterhood, that energy of intuition. That energy, lions can really balance rest and action, right? So there's this like beautiful like combination of things happening that we're all preparing for. And next week on the 7th, I will be doing a special ceremony, special class about the Lion's Gate with Mother Mary as our ascended master overlighting mentor. She really said, gather my people, gather the collective here who's drawn to this. And she was really like to heal up whatever block we have, and whatever block is connected to some form of unworthiness, to receive that abundance and to attract and magnetize our soul sisterhood and brotherhood. But I'm really connecting with the sisterhood vibe right now. And if you have wounds around that, it doesn't mean that it has to be your biological sisters. If you have those, it doesn't even have to be women in your family. In fact, for many of us, it's not that at all. It's like we're magnetizing, right? Those women that are meant to come into our lives that either we're meant to help or are meant to help us, or we're meant to co-create together with. There's such a wound to the sisterhood, and we're here to heal that. So anyway, if that sounds like something you want to do, sign up. Registration is open. I'm so excited. I will be pulling cards for everyone that comes. And if you can't attend live, the replay will be available. That's the 7th. I think it's at 3 Mexico time. But it's on my newsletter. It's on Facebook. I'm going to add it to my website. Anyway, I'll put all the information in the comments. All right, so let's go ahead and begin our interrupter ritual. Just use this as a jumpstart to do your own. And I invite you, whether you're new to this or you are a master at interrupter rituals, let yourself be in a beginner's mind. And let your soul show you, your higher self show you what she wants it to look, what she wants these to look like in this time. So I invite you to close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. And take a moment to visualize beautiful roots, roots of light, abundant roots of light, going down your legs and out the bottoms of your feet, deep into the heart of the earth. And they anchor you in so that as we do this, you are grounded and present. And we ask your higher self, your soul, and I'm using those terms interchangeably, so whichever resonates with you, or maybe you have another word, ask your soul to release anything that could get in the way. And then imagine you're breathing in through these roots this beautiful love from Mother Earth, because Mother Earth loves when you do these rituals. Because you're not only connecting with your soul, you're also connecting with her. You're not only blessing your life, you're blessing the earth. And so tune into that support from the earth right now. Let it flow up your legs, up your back, all the way to the crown of your head. And especially if you have been feeling a lot of anxiety, if you've been feeling a lot of discomfort, or just very spacey, really take a moment to do this. Just feeling the embrace of the earth go through your body all the way to the crown of your head, and then bringing the palms of your hands over your heart center as I'm doing, shoulders relaxed. And you can either keep your hands like this, or maybe you just need to do it for a moment and then you can just bring them down, whatever feels good. And now I invite everybody, just like I showed you that picture of that beautiful unicorn, bring your awareness to the crown of your head. Right, I'm bringing my hand there a little bit. And it might help you to do the same. And I'll picture that column of light that's coming down from overhead. And it's this light that's coming down from your beautiful soul. And it's going down to your heart. And your heart has this star of light, and that star of light is radiating rays out. Remember, you are now receiving. The only thing you're doing right now is receiving from your soul. And maybe you're very curious and you ask your soul, beautiful soul, what are you giving me right now? What am I receiving from you? And so I'm hearing love, healing, clearing. Just be curious. What are you receiving from your soul? And let that fill you up. In fact, set the intention if you want to, that in this moment you're receiving more from your soul than you've ever allowed yourself to receive before. And you can just say that, beautiful soul, it is my intention to receive more from you than I've ever received before. And reassure your parts, because sometimes religious programming has us fear this. Like, oh, I'm going to receive bad things. But no, you only ever receive beauty and love and all good things from your soul. And perhaps you see that star of light filling your heart, expanding, expanding more, more, more. Maybe now it's even emanating out of you. And you're still very grounded. Notice if you have a tendency to escape when you're receiving from your soul. And your soul right now is saying, stay present, stay connected to the earth. This is how you bring these blessings to your life. Keep receiving. Sometimes it helps me. I see myself like a flower or a tree that's receiving the sunlight. It's just open to receiving, receiving. Let's keep receiving. And maybe what you're receiving is a release. Maybe as you receive all of this love from your soul, something gets purged out of you. Just allow that to happen naturally. And now you're just going to ask, what is the next right step you're guiding me to take? Just a little step. What is the next right step? Beautiful soul. And if you notice that you start to panic or get over eager during this part, just come back to receiving. All that is important is your question. Your soul heard you, and your soul already answered, and you'll become aware of the answer at just the right time. So come back to receiving. And just just take some deep cleansing breaths. I like to bring the palms of my hands together. And now you're not only just thanking your soul, but your soul is thanking you. And we end with a namaste. Namaste. And so obviously that was a little longer just because I explained a lot. But you could do that in a minute or less. And it's not about doing it fast. I'm not suggesting that the point is to do it fast. But the point is that you have access to this in an instant. So that if you're like, oh, I really want to receive from my soul, but I need to wait till I'm done with this. I need to wait till I'm alone in the house. I need to wait till I figure this thing out. I need to wait till everybody's asleep. I need to wait till it's a nice day and I can go outside by my favorite tree. Like, no. I mean, those are all great things. But your soul's saying, no, you can do it now. Literally go to the bathroom. And that was where my interrupter rituals were for a long time. And do it there. Like, if it's that. Like, we can do it always. This is our birthright. I know this went a little longer, but I'm just going to trust that that's okay. So if you want to share, I mean, for me, it was so much like what I said, like healing, reassurance. Like I really felt like my soul was like, let me reassure you that all is well, that it's all working out, that you're safe. So I'm going to pull a card for the group from maybe I have 3 decks here, so I might do all of them. And if you want to share in the chat what came up for you or anything about the process, please feel free to do that. Oh, that's right. And you can share in the comments if you're watching the replay. So this is for everybody watching the replay or the here live. All right. What other messages does your soul have about your interrupter rituals, about doing this? Oh, it says you will get there. You can't force flowers to grow or plants to sprout. Be patient and respect that everything happens in its own way and time. Look at this beautiful woman. And look at the butterflies, right? It's like butterflies and light. It's like just like be here now. Your soul's saying it's like this is exactly where you need to be right now. Even if parts of you are like, ew, I hate it. I don't want to be here. And it's like, you are gonna get there. You are there now. Be here now. Okay. And then I'm gonna do this is did I show the oracle card? That was Enchanted Forest. And this is now from the angels and ancestors. I've been feeling my enlightened ancestors so loud and clear. I know, Lorenza, I agree. And see, what are our enlightened ancestors? What is their message about our interrupter rituals? Traveler, move in a new direction. Look at this. So, what a perfect sentence we're getting here, right? It's like, you're going to get there and look at this traveler. There's a compass right there. And this could literally be travel. I have a lot of travel coming up. Or it could be like inner travel, right? Like internal travel. However, this speaks to you. I love that she's wearing that color. To me, she like totally looks like Mary Magdalene. And you can use these as meditation starters. So later, like tune into what the message is for you. Okay, I have to turn this other card. Like it's literally like up on my lap. It like flew up on my laptop. So I have to turn it around. Oh my gosh, it's back. Winter, take care of your needs. Look at this. Your beautiful soul is saying, take care of your needs, my dear. It is essential. And interrupter rituals are one of those needs. And finally, let's do a soul surrender, power of surrender. And then we shall be done. All right, what is our soul asking us to surrender or surrender into for these interrupter rituals? Oh, I love this card so much. Surrender to complete healing. Open fully to the loving, compassionate forces of the universe that support your physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. This is so beautiful. Look at this image. Look at this woman with her. She's just walking towards the light at that beautiful dress. Look at that. And I love that. You can see kind of the shadow, right? She's like coming out of this time. It's like surrender to complete healing. And I feel like, when I said during the interrupter ritual, if you're willing, let yourself receive more than you've ever received before. I feel like this is the soul of everyone here saying, yes. What if you surrender to complete healing? Not just, oh, can you heal this little anxiety or this thing? Is like complete. What is it saying? Physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. And here on the beginning of the Lion's Gate, we're going to all gather together. Well, whoever wants to gather with me, you can gather together. I mean, with other people or on your own. Look at this. Oh, that feels so perfect. I'm so touched by this. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Those of you who are holding the beacon here live, and those of you who are watching the replay, thank you so much. I will be here next week for episode 97. I'm so excited. We're getting to episode 100. I just love that we're going to be at episode 100. And I hope to see you next week for the Lionsgate ceremony. Let me see. I'm doing that on Wednesday. So yeah, I should be having the podcast episode before the Lionsgate. And it's $33, by the way, if you are interested. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great, 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 loving rest of your day. Bye. I can't log off. Okay, I think now I'm going to be able to